So, what do we mean by transition? There's a lot of definitions here, and I don't know what you think, but they all sound really quite boring and nothing to do with the kind of experience we would have wanted, aged 14 to 25, and certainly not what we would want for the young people that we support or that we care about. So at the bottom, really, I've just put growing up, and that's what it really should be about, and what Amy's going to talk about is trying to make that experience for children and young people with a learning disability as much as possible like it would be for any other young person. So I threatened to talk about the policy context. There are two new pieces of legislation. The Children and Families Act, which you probably know came into force last September, and the Care Act, which came into force at the beginning of this month, apart from the charging bit, which is waiting till next year. They're both very new, so what I'm going to say is largely theoretical. Most of this isn't in place yet, hasn't been tested out, and obviously it's going to take a long time for local authorities to get the processes in place. But so I'm just going to do a few key points. The other health warning is I'm most certainly not an expert on either of them, but if you want to know more, there are some very, very good resources on the Sky website and lots of fact sheets you can download. So some key points. The good news is that both acts have been developed together and are joined up and are consistent. The bad news, or at least the less good news, is that neither of them make it clear whether responsibility for transition is on children's or adult services. It's still just the responsibility for the local authority. So the potential to be pushed from pillar to post, unfortunately, is not resolved in legislation, at least. I won't go into all the detail on all the slides, but the key differences really are the Children's and Families Act goes from 0 to 25, and the Care Act deals with 18 plus. So between 18 and 25, i.e. the latter stages of transition, both acts apply. Both acts focus on outcome, both focus on well-being, and both focus on prevention, although of course the reality of that, given the resources available, is yet to be seen. So the Children and Families Act, next slide, is described as a comprehensive birth to 25 special educational needs and disability system, and replaces the current statementing process. It gives new rights to 16 and 17-year-olds who are now able to make their own decisions pre-18. It's up to them to decide what they want to do under the Act and, for example, request assessments. And critically, it's trying to look at the whole family rather than just the child in a transition process. That's the aim anyway. So there's a lot about joined-up assessments and considering the needs of carers and the family as well as the child with a disability. Under the Children and Families Act, next one, there should be one assessment and one plan. Sorry, I didn't mean to move on, but never mind. For the first time, it includes health as part of the plan. It's the first time that the NHS has had statutory duties as well as the NHS. Now, what that looks like in practice in terms of planning, who knows, but it is there for the first time. There are also new rights to assessment for adult carers and young carers. Again, that's new. And preparation for adulthood is a key theme. So then moving on to transition, the local authority has to carry out a transition assessment if requested, although having said that, in the guidance notes it does say that if the local authority doesn't want to carry one out, it can say so as long as it does so in writing. The approach is very much about well-being and about prevention. Again, not sure what will happen in practice. But to get a transitions assessment, it has to be based on there being significant benefit. And significant benefit is defined as being around a change in life. So whether it's going to college, whether it's getting a job, as in a life stage for an individual. And it has to be about preparing for adulthood. Yeah. Okay. Consent and capacity. The young person can consent, must consent, or not to have an assessment if they're deemed to have capacity, and where an individual doesn't have capacity, then there is a right to advocacy and the local authority has a duty to provide that. That's quite a key theme in both acts. I'm not sure where all these advocates are going to come from, but there is that right to get the independent advocacy if beneficial. So the transition assessment, the key requirements are that they are person-centred. The local authority has a duty to consider the best possible outcomes for the individual, not just good outcomes, which is hopefully quite interesting. And although that isn't exactly a legal duty that they have to provide it, it's been pointed out by some commentators that the public sector equality duty has the same provisions and has had some successful legal challenges, so that could be quite important. The outcomes around preparing for adulthood under the Children and Families Act are employment, health, independent living and friends and community, and equally in the Care Act, for the first time, employment is included as an outcome for disabled adults, which hopefully you'll agree is some progress. And this is just a little summary. The reason I've got so many slides here is I hoped it might be useful for you to take away after. I think the slides are going to be shared by Pavilion. So this is a summary of what the Care Act says a transition assessment should be. So it should consider short-term as well as medium-term aspirations, be in reasonable timescales, be person-centred and be proportionate. Now, as I say, this is all theory, so we don't quite know what that means as yet. The other thing you'll probably be interested in is continuity of care. So going back to that cliff edge thing, it basically means that at the local authority's discretion, a young person can be supported under children's or adult services between 18 and 25. So hopefully that means that the cliff edge won't happen. But as I say, this is still theoretical. A final one from me before Amy talks about something a great deal more interesting around carers. So for the first time, the needs of carers are put on a par with the person that they're caring for, and the right to have an assessment as a carer is new and is enshrined in law, so that's probably also worth something.